Det pågår utveckling för fullt runt om i Europa. Många länder har eller håller på att utveckla nationella referensramar för kvalifikationer för livslångt lärande, motsvarande den svenska SeQF. I Nederländerna har Nlqf varit operativ under ett antal år och det är en av de referensramar som på samma sätt som SeQF är öppen för nivåplacering av kvalifikationer utanför formell utbildning. Nlqf är ju därför ett väldigt intressant exempel för oss här i Sverige. Därför har vi idag med oss Thijs Pils som ska få presentera sig själv och förhoppningsvis kan uttala sitt eget namn något bättre än vad jag kan. Thijs, very welcome and thank you for doing this interview. I just said in Swedish that I probably pronounce your name very badly, so you get to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you very much, Anna. Yeah, my name is Thijs Pijls. I'm manager of the Dutch National Coordination Point, Nlqf. And the NCP, the National Coordination Point, works on behalf of the Ministry of Education in the Netherlands. And I've been involved with the NCP from the beginning, at this moment 8 or 9 years. First in the role of quality advisor and later as a manager from the Dutch NCP. But first of all, from the Netherlands, I would like to congratulate the SeQF on its 5 years anniversary.
Thank you very much. So the Nlqf has been operational for quite some time. So if we start with what was the added value? Why did the Nlqf come into play?
Mm-hmm. There are several reasons, and the first reason is the comparability of the qualifications in the Netherlands. We have, in the Netherlands, we have qualifications regulated by the Ministry of Education, but we have also a lot of non-formal or private qualifications. And we have a large number of private training providers that offers all kinds of diplomas. And with the Nlqf, these diplomas become comparable in terms of level. And you can show the diplomas becomes value on the labor market. And this helps in the context of lifelong learning and lifelong development. In the second place, working on the basis of learning outcomes. Learning outcomes, looking at the output is an important condition for flexible education and also for validation. And I think the Nlqf stimulates thinking in framework. And a good example for me is New Zealand, Scotland and Ireland. And these countries are further in this development, thinking in terms of levels instead of thinking of training or education is an important stimulus for lifelong learning. And the fourth reason is that thanks to the Nlqf, there is more clarity about the level of a diploma or certificate, both national and international. And it is important that we give a clear lead to employers, employees, students, and training providers about it.
Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about the state of play? What's happening right now? How many qualifications of these private qualifications you talk about have been added to the framework?
Yeah, we reached some milestones, and one of the milestones is that we classified or leveled private qualifications to the Nlqf. So at the end of the year, we will have 110 classified private qualifications from level 1 till 7. So in the field of care, catering, retail, military, sports, grooming, warehouse workers. For example, also the driver license examiner, counseling and process technique. So in a lot of sectors, we classified leveled qualifications to the Nlqf. Another milestone is that we have a properly functioning national coordination point with, I think, good quality procedures. as the basis for validation and leveling qualifications. And at this moment, there is still increasing awareness among training providers, students, employers, and employees for the Nlqf. Another important milestone is that from 2022, there will be a tax benefit for training providers who offers programs linked to the Nlqf. And another important milestone is the preparation of the Nlqf legislation, and that will be effect in 2021, 2022. So these are some important milestones and an overview of the state of the play.
Thank you. I mean, congratulations for your over 100 qualifications now. You're far ahead of us when it comes to this. So that's very interesting to see. Hopefully we will get there as well quite soon. And you also mentioned that there will be legislation in place in 2022. So that's interesting. You went the other way around. We started with legislation and then started leveling qualifications, and you did it the other way around. You started leveling qualifications and then you're going to add legislation.
Yeah.
What do you think will be the added benefit of legislation?
The added benefit is that then there is an Nlqf level indication on all regulated diplomas in the Netherlands for the secondary education, for vocational training, and also for higher training. So a lot of people in the Netherlands will receive a diploma with the Nlqf level on it. And that's very good for the marketing and communication. So that will be a big benefit for us.
Interesting, thank you. So what would you say have been the biggest challenges from the start up today?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I think one of the biggest challenges is marketing and communication of the Nlqf. It is and remains a challenge to explain in a simple way what the Nlqf is, what the added value is, especially for employers. And I think demand-side management, the use of the framework and Nlqf levels, for example, in vacancy taxes, is necessary to generate more demand for the Nlqf from employers. And another big challenge now is, on the other hand, developing high-quality procedures. But these procedures must be efficient and affordable for the private providers. So you know, when the procedures are too complex or too expensive, it can be a reason to avoid the Nlqf.
Can you give us an example? What is the cost of applying for having your qualification added to the framework?
So in our procedure, we have two steps. The first step is the validation, the quality assurance of the organizations. And we have 3 prizes for it. When they have already a certain external validated quality mark, for example, ISO or inspectorate, then the prize is €1,000. When they have a quality mark from the Dutch Association of Private Providers, then it's €2,000. And when they do not have any quality mark, the price for the first step is €7,500. And after that, the leveling is €2,500 per qualification.
Qualification.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. To compare, for us here in Sweden, it's just one fee that includes all of this. And that fee is right now around €1,000 for us.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to compare.
Yeah.
So any other challenges that's worth mentioning, or are those the 2 biggest ones for you?
Yeah, marketing and communication is a big one. Legislation is one of the challenges. And the legislation, as I mentioned, level indication on all diplomas, both for formal, regulated and private qualifications and diplomas. As I told, optimizing the procedures. But the big challenge is also how do we deal with partial qualification or partial certificates, edu badges and micro credentials. That's a challenge, and my dream is to realize a national qualification authority like New Zealand, Scotland or Ireland. So one qualification authority which is responsible for leveling, credit rating and quality assurance for both the regulated as the private market.
Yeah. Thank you so much so far. So now we've talked a little bit about challenges. So let's talk a little bit about what have been the greatest contributions of the Nlqf so far. We talked a little bit about added value, but what do you see as the success story for the Nlqf?
Yeah, so I mentioned already some milestones, the leveling of over 100 qualifications in the Nlqf. I think the hands-on approach of the Netherlands. Let's do it on a practical way. I think that's a success factor here in the Netherlands. Another contribution is that we also developed an Nlqf qualification database, and the database make it possible to compare all kinds of qualifications, formal and private, on level, learning outcomes, credit, sectors, and so on. And the national database is now linked to the Europass platform. That's important to compare qualifications on a national and international level. And one of our greatest contributions is, for example, in the metal and electronic sector. And in that sector, they use for most all training courses the Nlqf, and they have reimbursements from the training funds and the collective labor agreement. For us, that's an example for other sectors in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's very interesting. So you talk a bit about comparability, and you talk about learning outcomes. What we've seen as a challenge, but also as an added value here in Sweden, is the work on learning outcomes. But we also see that these private training providers and our sector industry organizations, etc., it's not necessarily very easy for them to design qualifications with learning outcomes. So is that something that you also recognize, and what are you doing to help them with learning outcomes, if anything?
Yeah, I recognize that challenge. And in the Netherlands, in the formal education, in the higher education, they did a big pilot, an interesting pilot for higher education based on learning outcomes. And it's very, very successful, and it shows that it can, but it needs a certain mind shift to understand what it is, developing training courses on the basis of learning outcomes. As a national coordination point, we developed a guide how to write qualifications and how to write learning outcomes, and we offer workshops for providers or employers how to write learning outcomes in a proper way.
Very interesting. Thank you. Then we're doing almost the same thing here in Sweden.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. So what's coming up next for you? You talked a little about the legislation coming into play, etc. But what's on the horizon for the Nlqf?
Yeah, a big challenge at this moment is strengthening the employer approach, but also optimizing the procedures. So at this moment, the national coordination point, we are responsible for the procedures. And the question now is, should we continue to performance these procedures of leveling by ourselves as a national coordination point, or outsource them to, for example, a awarding body as is done in Ireland and Scotland? I think that's a challenge. So we have to develop scenarios for the futures. Um, at this moment, the interest in Nlqf is growing, and at this moment, a big challenge is how can we organize the work in a proper way. And so we have to think about scenarios, outsourcing our work or doing it by ourselves. I think that's for the coming years the biggest challenge.
Mm. That's very interesting to have efficient procedures surrounding this. Mm.
Efficient procedures, yes, that's a challenge. You know, in the beginning of the Nlqf, we were glad that there were qualifications that we can level to the Nlqf, and now the challenge is how can we organize our work in a proper way. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. So with your experience and what you've learned from your work in the Netherlands, the challenges you faced, etc., and the lessons learned. So what would be your advice to us here in Sweden for our next 5 years with the SeQF?
Yeah. First of all, continue with the enthusiasm you are working on right now. But as I mentioned, focus on communication and employer approach. That's, I think, very, very important. Then the rest will come by itself. I think the employer approach is very important because they have to start with questions about the Nlqf.
You need to get them interested and understanding what the added value for them would be.
What the added value is for them, yes, and yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else you would like to tell us to do or not to do?
No, again, congratulations with the 5 years of anniversary, and I wish you have a very successful and fruitful conference to celebrate this milestone. And so, good luck with the next 5 years.
Thank you, and thank you so much for doing this interview with us. It's very interesting, and we've already been to visit you once, and perhaps we will see each other again live and not like this. I hope so, and we will continue to look to the Netherlands for a good example on what to do and how to carry forward. So thank you for being there for us as a support in our developments.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.